Hello, this is database groups 11. So just to get started, we're going to just quickly introduce our group members. So we have Brandon Kambasha, Flammo Karaj, Claudia Starula, and Rudo Musarua. So just to get started, Brandon is going to do the creates for us.
Okay, so starting off with the create commands. I'm going to start off by checking that the database is empty with this command here. As you can see, row selected. So we're going to start off with create commands. We're going to create tables. These are collective create commands for tables, types, and sequences that we use for primary keys. And these are all the tables created. And to view them, just select name from tab. And there you go. So we're going to table. So we're going to do set server output to be able to DBMS output later on. So we're going to add our tables, set our primary keys, as well as set our foreign keys. And there we go. Those are our primary keys inserted. And now we're going to insert all our meaningful test data for our tables and types. Okay, there you go, right there. Just do this. All our data inserted. Okay, and then now I'm going to pass Rudo, who will come to do the query commands.
So just to get started, we're going to just run the queries in blocks. So this first query creates all the accommodation styles. This one gets the names associated with the ID one, and then the third one gets all the IDs associated with the style name hotel. The next block is going to be dealing with the retreat accommodations and accommodations. As you can see, all of the queries are running. And our next set is for the guests. Now we're going to create our programs table. For this string, we will get the guests including their first name and the retreat accommodation by the name that they stay in. So this is a compound join that we're going to be using. And then the next one is going to be an outer join, which I'm going to copy and paste out and then bring this one and we get the result. Now we're going to do the outer joins for accommodations and retreat accommodations. I'm going to run our subqueries and our nested queries. As already selected. So now I'm going to pass on to Flammo, who's going to do the triggers and the cursors.
So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to run our triggers, our cursors, and the procedures we've created. So first, we're going to run this trigger, which checks if the date of birth is smaller than the system date. If it's not going to insert that value to the database. So if we call this trigger created, so if we try to insert a row, the date of birth, which is in 2028, it should give us an error. There it is, date of birth cannot be a future date. And if we select Stevens, we can see that our row was not inserted into the database. Next thing, we have a trigger which checks the cost of a program. So if a program cost is a negative value, it's not going to be inserted into the database. So if we try it if we try to insert a program whose cost is -12, to give us an error saying cost of program cannot be a negative value. And just to double check, we can select from programs. Here we can see that global warming is not inserted into the database. So as with the database, we've made a similar trigger which checks the creation date of a program. So same thing, it does not allow any data when the creation date is a future date. So here we've put 2023. It says creation date of a program cannot be a future date. Just to double check, you can select from programs. We cannot see football management under program names. So next thing, we have a function programs called, which is called by the cursor. So what this does, this function counts how many programs does a guest attend. So this function, it should be created. I don't know, if we run the cursor, it should look for every single guest and print how many programs they attend. So here we see for all of them it's just one. So just to double check, we're gonna run this select command for programs and for students. And you can see there are guest IDs down here, and you can see that there are on every program name we just have one guest ID, so which means they're all attending only one program. So the output on the cursor is correct. Next thing, if we select from guests, we can see that at the moment they are not associated with any username. So what this cursor does here, it looks through every single guest and generates and also stores a username for every guest. It says procedure successfully completed. So if we go back and select now from guests, you can see that every single guest has its own username. Next thing, we have a function and a procedure. So the procedure calls the function, it passes an ID, and from that ID, the function checks, from the ID checks some details and also calculates his age. Using this thing here, I divided it by 365, so because it was calculated in days, so I made it to calculate it in years. So we've got this function and this procedure. So if we run this now, they should be created. The function created. If we execute it with the guest ID of 1, the guest details here. So we have the first name, the surname, the username, the guest ID, and his age. So just to verify that, we have to do a select command where guest ID equals 1, which is the same with the parameter 1 that we passed when we executed the procedure. We can see that all the data is matching, so it is all true. So then we have a procedure which calls two functions and calculates the minimum and the maximum cost of a room inside an accommodation. If we execute it, and also select just to double check. It says highest price is 550 and the lowest one is 35. So we can double check it under the select statement. So we can see that the lowest one is 35 right here and 550 down there. We've created a similar one, but with min-max of a cost of a program. So if we run and execute that one, So the program with the highest price is rowing, which costs 85.5, and the lowest one 10.5. So if we select that one, you can see that the lowest cost is on trampolining, which is the output that we had. The highest one is 85.5 for rowing, so the output is correct. So that's all. So the last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna run our job commands. We have to run them in the right order. So we have to run first the triggers and the procedures and then the functions, because if we run the functions first, we're gonna have an error because we have inside some procedures and some triggers we call some functions. So now everything is dropped. So to check that, we run this query here. We can see that no row selected. That's all. Thank you very much.